Hello, my name is JJ Johnston. I'm the Executive Artistic Director of the Classical Theater Company, and we would like to welcome you to today's interview. So we have an interview with our director of our upcoming production of The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. It is running April 11th to the 20th at the Deluxe Theater here in Houston, Texas, located over in the historic Fifth Ward. If you go to classicaltheater.org, you can purchase your tickets there right now. Right now, you can purchase tickets to The Taming of the Shrew. Tickets are available still for all performances, so check us out. There are only 10 public performances, though, so you do not want to miss out. And tickets are selling pretty well, so be sure to get on that. You would not want to miss this show. I promise you that. If you want to donate to Classical Theater Company, I always encourage that as well. You can also do that through our website at classicaltheater.org. Your support is greatly appreciated, and it is 100% tax deductible. So a pretty good deal, in my opinion. So I am, as I say, I'm JJ Johnston. I'm the Executive Artistic Director and founder of the Classical Theater Company here in Houston. We're the only professional theater company in the entire state of Texas that solely produces year-round classical drama. So we do old plays, 100 years old or older. So that's everything from the Greeks and Shakespeare up through Oscar Wilde and George Bernard Shaw and the early modern playwrights. And so we're excited to get a chance to have our first foray back into the world of William Shakespeare since 2015's Henry V. So a long time ago now. So we're excited to get a chance to do a little bit of that. And our director for The Taming of the Shrew is our very own Dana Bowman, who we're very excited to have here. Hi, Dana.
Hi, JJ.
Thanks for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
So I thought we'd take a little time, chat with folks, let them know, chat with you so folks can know and learn about you and Shakespeare and this play that we're going to produce.
Awesome.
So, let's start with this. So you've worked with us a number of times now, including on that Henry V I mentioned. So what shows have you worked on at CTC now?
Oh my God. So Henry V.
Yes.
Okay. R.U.R.
So this is a test because I know the answer to this question. So,
Oh no. Okay. Hold on. The Birds. Cherry Orchard.
Yes. Anything else?
Yes. Enemy of the People.
Yes.
Oh no. Marriage of Vicar.
The Barber of Seville.
Barber of Seville. There we go. Barber of Seville. Sorry, I said the sequel.
You did. So 6. That's a pretty good run there, I'd say.
Yeah.
So we're getting a chance to do some Taming of the Shrew.
Yes.
So what's your background? How do you come to approaching Shakespeare, and how did you come to that world?
How I got into Shakespeare is like kind of I don't know how to answer that question fully. It was just sort of like always in the background for me. I always enjoyed it, and then I just got into it more and more in college, and I ended up doing this program called Shakespeare at Winedale that's run by UT, which is a fabulous program. And then I went and got my master's in directing Shakespeare at the University of Exeter. And it's just something I'm fascinated by, and I just love it. I also have like a real passion for history. Was an area I studied a lot. So I think for me, it kind of combines my love for history and theater together.
So what is it about Shakespeare that drew you to him? What was the love of it?
I think part of it is the history, right? But I mean, there are so many other playwrights from that era that we still have extant plays from that I also enjoy. But there's something particular about Shakespeare. I think there's a real mastery over the use of language, not just with word choice, but with the approach to verse, which you see sort of shift over his career, that I just find really fascinating. And it's like a fun puzzle to work with.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've always, you say there are all these still extant plays from his contemporaries, but Shakespeare stands out amongst them, and I think one of the things that I find so kind of remarkable about him is his ability to create inconsistency in character, and as such create depth within these characters. So you have a villain who feels bad about what they're doing.
Right.
You have a hero who questions whether they're doing the right thing. You have these murderers with pangs of guilt. This kind of thing that didn't really exist. In pop culture at the time, really. Up to that point, most characters, you were the bad guy, you were the good guy, you were the lover, you were these archetypes that didn't have a tremendous amount of depth to them.
Yeah, I think there's something really interesting in that there's sort of like almost a break from like the commedia archetype, and we're almost pulling back from ancient Greek tragedy where we've got that tragic flaw, even if we're the good guy. There's something to that, I definitely think. Like, Julius Caesar would not be the same if Brutus was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this, right?
Yeah,
I don't think that play would be anywhere near the level it's at. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, and he created such, and of course, I mean, obviously the language is next level, bar none is supersedes his contemporaries, in my opinion. But when I founded CTC, one of the things that I wanted to do was my original plan was to always do at least one Shakespeare each season, because at the time in Houston, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, 16 seasons ago, the Houston Shakespeare Festival was the only company in town that was doing Shakespeare with any regularity. Sometimes the Alley might do something, sometimes Main Street Theater might do something, but for the most part, it was there really wasn't. And then it became a little more prevalent. Shakespeare in the Shade started. Fourth Wall was doing Shakespeare. They still have a summer program that they do. There was more Shakespeare being produced locally, so it didn't feel quite so necessary to produce it every season, and so we moved away from that, and actually a bit more into the early modern playwrights, which were also sort of criminally underproduced locally. So
yes.
But we're excited to get a chance to go back for the first time in 9 years.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
And so. When I was planning the season, I reached out to you because I knew I wanted to do a season of that focused on iconic female roles, and so we did Medea in the fall, and we're doing Taming the Shrew in the spring with Catherine, and I was, this was full disclosure. This was my first Shakespeare play I ever did was Taming of the Shrew when I was in 9th grade, and and ever since then it's been my.
Who were you?
I was Biondello.
Okay.
And it was to this day my no pressure Mark, and so Mark Alba is playing Biondello in our upcoming production, and so I was, I fell in love with this play, and ever since then it's my favorite Shakespeare comedy, and so I was, but at the same time, it's got some problematic issues. There's some thematically issues with this play, and so I reached out to you because I wanted to do this play, and I wanted to include it in our season. It seems to slip right in very nicely with these iconic female roles, but I wasn't sure how to approach it, and so I reached out to the person who, Shakespeare expert resident, and said, "How do you think you do this?" So let's talk about the issues. What are the issues with this play for our audience who might not be familiar?
Yeah. Okay. So there are a number of ways you can take this question. I think probably the most obvious issue that we're going to address is the misogyny and sexism sort of inherent in the text, which was arguably even notable in Shakespeare's time. I mean, if you look at responses like The Tamer Tamed, you could argue that Shrew was even a little for Shakespeare's time. So this is a play which focuses on the taming of a woman into sort of an ideal wife. And so the relationship between Caterina and Petruchio is, of course, like a site of contention in a lot of ways. From a scholarly point of view, from like a theatrical point of view, it's just something that's a little bit of a lightning rod and a little bit of a hot spot for us. It's definitely become something of a problem play. There are other like issues with the play in terms of like some things with like social class and how it mirrors sort of like treatments of like servants and things like that as well. But those would probably be like the largest issues, I would say, that are noticeable and that like jump out at you about the play.
Yeah. So, question of the hour, how do you plan on addressing these issues with our production?
Yeah, cool. So one thing we don't want to do is forget that this is a comedy. However, at the same time, we have these issues that like aren't necessarily funny.
Right.
So the way we are talking about addressing this is we are staging this as if it were a 1950s sitcom. So in that way, the 50s is sort of very much within our cultural imagination thought of as like a time where we have very strict gender roles, and it's even sort of aestheticized those gender roles. So it's an easy sort of shorthand for that. We can still watch old sitcoms and laugh and then also simultaneously be like, ugh.
Right.
Like I do that with Friends now.
Sure, right.
Like,
Yeah.
Friends, there's a shocking amount of homophobia on Friends.
Right.
So it's already something that we sort of do when we watch old television anyway. We have to sort of like figure out what we're comfortable with and what we're not comfortable with. And I thought that this sort of framework would allow us to keep the levity of the production while still poking at the things we are not comfortable with and allow us to sort of explore them while still keeping the comic framework.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, without too many spoilers, what are some of the things that you're looking at that might be in the production that would sort of lend itself to that?
Well, costumes, obviously. Lots of different iconic sort of 50s looks in there. We're also looking at the set. It's going to mirror like a 50s sitcom, and also sound design. We're thinking of some interesting audience reactions and music and how we play with that.
Shout out, by the way, to John Harvey, who's literally running the sound right now.
Thank you, John.
Awesome, cool. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. What is aside from the stuff that we've already mentioned, what is or are the biggest challenges you think with producing this play, showing this play? Again, not the stuff we've already talked about.
Right.
So something addressing that, whether it's something that in the rehearsal room or whatever you
Can
think
I talk about challenges I've faced already?
Absolutely.
So this play is a really interesting play because it was written incredibly early on in Shakespeare's career, right? And we often think of Shakespeare's use of verse as very regular in his early career. That is not the case in this play. And so there's actually a lot of contention around what is actually verse, what is prose, because a lot of the play is written in doggerel. And so as I was compiling the script,
for our audience, can you tell them what doggerel means?
So doggerel is sort of like it's like bad poetry almost, or like prose that's kind of verse-like, but not really. So as I was compiling the script, I have all these sources that are not in agreement with each other on, they're like, no, this line is verse. No, it's not. It's prose. And I'm trying to think, from like, what's going to be most useful for the actor, what flows the best, all that kind of stuff. But that was definitely a large challenge in compiling the script, I think.
Sure.
There's no such thing as a stable Shakespeare text. So like, there's always going to be some degree of that, but I found that it was really challenging in some ways where I had to really sit and be like, okay, well, this could be an iambic pentameter, but is it? Like, just really sit with that.
Yeah, nice. Have you found that existing in others of Shakespeare's plays?
Not to the same degree.
Really? Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look back. So what was also written around this time would be Henry VI Part 2. I haven't worked on that in over 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'd need to take a look back at that. But I remember Henry VI Part 2 being much more regular.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
So I'd have to take a look back through the catalog, but nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah.
Later in his career, he plays with verse a lot, but that seems very intentional, and it's not quite this same sort of mix of like, is it verse, is it prose? It's more like, I mean, if you look at something like The Winter's Tale, the verse is incredibly irregular, but that's sort of like mirroring the character's emotions and providing almost like notes, since they wouldn't have had a director.
Right,
So.
right. Fair enough. Yeah, cool, awesome. What when it comes to Shakespeare's text, in the rehearsal room, what is your general approach? How would you direct the text, and what would you want from your actors?
Cool. So.
Hint, by the way, if you're one of the actors, you can get a heads up pre-rehearsal right now.
Oh God. So for me, I think the verse, even with something like this, and one of the reasons why I pay so much attention when compiling it is because I think, like I said, the verse is there to give us some hints, right? If we don't have a director, the verse is there to sort of give us some hints into ideas about what a character might be feeling, staging ideas, all of that. And so for me, scanning is a big part of how I approach a text. I spend a lot of time with the text scanning it, if it is in verse. And I'd love for my actors to do that as well, just because I think that provides you with...
Even Craig?
Yes, even Craig, especially Craig.
Sorry, Craig, if you're watching.
So I think it provides us with a lens with which we can view the play and just sort of give us ideas. I also think, again, that rhythm is really important to a Shakespeare play. I think a lot of times you see Shakespeare plays where people approach it very slow and that's just not going to, one, work for this play in any case. Right. But also, generally speaking, in Shakespeare plays, I mean, the verse is there, we're moving. And so I kind of like us to just sort of take that energy and run with it. So
nice. What's your favorite moment in this play? What are you most excited about getting your hands on and getting it up on its feet?
That's a really good question. Oh no!
That's why they pay me the mediocre bucks.
Oh, okay. What is? I'm pretty excited about that first meeting between Katerina and Petruchio. Yeah.
So like one moment.
I don't know. I'm struggling here.
A character you want? A character that you're excited to work with? I mean, is it the obvious? Is it Kate? Is it
I mean,
Petruchio?
Kate's pretty exciting to work with.
Yeah.
I love Grumio in this play.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm pretty excited to do some stuff with Grumio.
Yeah.
There's actually, you know what? I'm really excited about sort of the scene with all the food in Act 4, where the food's brought out and it's not good enough. And I think that's in some ways a really troubling scene, but it's also a hilarious scene. Yeah. So I'm really excited to get to work on that. Nice. And I think there's a lot we can do with that.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. What if you could speak to one of our audience members prior to them coming to see the show? What would you like them to take away from having seen this show? What would you like them to walk away with?
One, I want them to have had a good time, right?
Absolutely.
It's a comedy. We want you to leave laughing and having a good time. But I want you to also think about, I guess, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this.
However you want.
I mean, obviously, we're living in a world right now where I think women's freedoms are being encroached upon. And I think that's something we see that's very much present in our state.
Sure.
Right now. And so while we're laughing, I'd also like us just to sort of think about how we treat women and like, are we going back?
Sure.
Are we going to go back to the 50s?
Right. Yeah. No,
and what dangers does that pose? So.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, very good. Well, I think that'll wrap us up for today.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dana, for coming and joining us today.
Thanks, JJ.
And thank you for watching. Whenever you're watching this, we are excited about the upcoming production, and we are looking forward to getting on our feet next week. We start rehearsals next week for the Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. As I said, you can purchase tickets right now. Get them in your hot little hands, virtual hands, at www.classicaltheatre.org. You can purchase tickets there. If you want to support Classical Theatre Company, you can do so, and we'd be greatly appreciated. You can donate also through our website at classicaltheatre.org. Your donation is fully tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can help support the arts here in Houston, Texas. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you at the theater. Thank you so much, and have yourself a fabulous day.